Is your cloud bill out of control? CloudZero is building a platform that will let you analyze your cloud investment faster than ever before. You'll get accurate, granular visibility into your total cloud spend without the typical pitfalls of legacy cloud cost management tools like endless tagging or clunky Kubernetes support. CloudZero is how cloud-driven companies gain more financial control and predictability by driving immediate and ongoing savings. You can answer questions like, how can I save 20% of my cloud bill right now? Who are my most expensive customers? How much does this specific feature cost our business? Join companies like Rapid7, Drift, and SeatGeek by visiting cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started today. Again, please visit cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started today.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Another Sunday perspective. I'm recording this one just a little early from Sunday, but hope everybody's doing well. We are getting towards the end of June 2023, almost the midpoint way of the year. The summer solstice has come and gone, the longest day of the year. So while we still have 3 months or so of robust summer and lots of sunshine and stuff, we have passed the longest day. So enjoy it while you can. Enjoy those wonderful long summer nights. At least if you're in the northern hemisphere. I guess if you're in the southern hemisphere, it'll be here 6 months from now. So today's going to be a little bit of an odd show, and I'll prep folks ahead of time. There may be some talk about sports as it relates to me and to fandom and so forth. So if you're one of those people who sort of hears the word sports, you immediately think sports ball, you turn your nose up to it. It's fine if you turn this one off right now. I just want to give you a heads up. I didn't want you to drag it out. But we're going to talk a little bit about kind of teams and sports, and not necessarily sports specific, but as I always try and do at the Sunday Perspectives, we're going to try and weave together a couple of different things. And one of those this week, at least, it has been on my radar and very much in my view for the last week and probably for 3 or 4 months now, has been a specific aspect of sports. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about kind of how that weaves together in terms of moments in time, in terms of the emotions that go with teams and your support of teams, your participation in teams, and kind of the ups and downs that go along with it. And I promise there will be a tech angle that weaves into this as well, but the sports aspect will probably be a little more prevalent than the tech aspect per se. So with that, I will get to that right after the break. Are you looking to stay ahead of the curve in the latest trends in enterprise tech? Look no further than the Breaking Analysis podcast with Dave Vellante. This data-driven program dives into the most important topics facing the enterprise tech industry today. With a data-first approach that leverages ETR's renowned surveys of IT decision-makers and insight from the CUBE community, Breaking Analysis delivers in-depth research on the most important topics facing technologists and IT buyers. Whether you're a business leader, an IT professional, investor, or just an avid follower of the industry, this podcast is a must-listen. Just search Breaking Analysis Podcast wherever you get your podcast and tune in today to stay ahead of the game in enterprise tech. And we're back, and I'm trying to think of the best way to sort of frame this discussion, because I think there's some interesting points that could be made in here in terms of sort of what's going to be an intersection between somewhat sports, but to a certain extent, kind of dreams and aspirations, and the reality of sort of seeing some of those things come together, the reality of some good times with those and some challenging times with those. So let me put this in context. And I'm going to give you a little bit of historical context. I won't go into too much detail because some of it doesn't really matter. So when I was a kid growing up, I played baseball. I played a bunch of sports, but I played baseball was probably my sort of favorite sport. And one aspect of anybody who plays anything, I don't care if you're you play piano, you probably have some aspiration at some point in time. You're like, I would like to play in Carnegie Hall or whatever the sort of Super Bowl or World Cup of playing piano might be. If you are a cyclist, maybe you ride bikes, you might think, oh, when I was a kid, like I wanted to be in the Tour de France. And maybe you knew in the back of your mind, like that wasn't really possible, but it was sort of a motivating factor. And so for me, growing up, I played baseball, and every June on TV, this thing called the College World Series would pop up. And, we started watching this back when I was pre-high school. So this was 5, 6, 7 years before I even had a chance to do that, right? I think I was a kid who never aspired maybe to the highest levels, but for whatever reason, this event, this College World Series, was, to me, what felt like the pinnacle. It just seemed like an amazing place. And I think one of the interesting things about it was, and things that I could relate to as a person playing sports, was there was always on one of the teams in every year, maybe a couple people on a certain team who were smaller in stature. So for anybody who's ever met me, I'm not the tallest guy in the world. I'm only about 5'10". There are no distinguishing characteristics about me. I look like a million other people. And in sports, as in a lot of aspects, sometimes the best people stand out. They are physically imposing. Maybe they're the tallest people or the biggest and strongest people. Maybe they are the best looking people. Maybe they have the longest beard. Maybe they are the most beautiful people, whatever it might be. There's some distinguishing characteristic about them that sometimes you look at them and you go, well, that's not me. And what was interesting about the College World Series, as opposed to, say, the professional level of baseball, in this case, was I don't think I could ever necessarily relate to any of those people because they were just so dominatingly different looking. But for this college baseball thing, there was always somebody who looked about like me. And I think there's, you hear this all the time, there's an importance in representation, in seeing people that look like you in the thing that you aspire to be, whether that's the color you are, the sex that you are, the race that you are, or it could just be the size that you are. It could be, I hear this sometimes. We live in the southern part of the United States. People go, oh, it was great to finally see somebody who had my dialect, my twang, my, kind of sounded like me. And so I think for me, the fact that I played the sport, I played baseball, there was this event that happened every year, the College World Series. It seemed like the pinnacle of where I could possibly get to because I would see people that looked sort of like me playing, and I could aspire to that. And that was always interesting. And so fast forward a little bit, played baseball in high school and had an opportunity to play baseball in college, at least for a few years. Wasn't necessarily a great player, but I got to play, was part of a team. Our team at the time never went to the College World Series. We were never good enough to go to the College World Series. We all aspired to it, but we were never good enough to get to that sort of final stage, that highest pinnacle. Now, that was a long time ago. You can go look at how long ago that was, but it was a long time ago. And so for years since then, I've followed my team, as many people do in every sport. You follow your team, and we were always, better than average, but never good enough to get over the hump. Right? We had some years in which we were very good, and some years in which we were very mediocre. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we got very close to being able to get to this highest pinnacle, this College World Series, It's one of those moments that you realize, like, okay, this doesn't happen very often. The moments in which the thing that you are the most passionate about, the thing that you relate to, the thing that you're part of that team, for most people, unless you, happen to maybe you go to the best school, or you are part of some group that, whatever, you're part of the thing that wins all the time. You're the Manchester United of soccer, or you are the New York Yankees of baseball, or you are the, whatever, of some sport or some activity. You are the Ferrari of F1. I think that's right. You typically, your team, your thing that you root for doesn't always make it. And so this past year, my team was not only good, not only very good, they were the best. They were the number one team for the second half of the season, which in and of itself is something that we had never done. We had never achieved that level of greatness for any given period of time. And we ended up making it all the way to this College World Series. And so in and of itself, it was sort of an amazing culmination of what felt like 30 plus years of rooting for something to happen and then finally seeing it happen, which was in and of itself amazing, right? And I had the opportunity, then I told myself, if this ever happens, I'm going to go watch it. I'm going to go see it in person because I don't know if this is going to happen again, right? This may not happen again for another, it's been 68 years since my school had made it to, my team had made it to that level. And so, unless something happens in life with science and medicine, if history repeats itself, I won't see this again for my lifetime, so I told myself I'm going to go. And unfortunately, I couldn't take my family. They had some commitments. So I had a chance to take my nephew, who's a fan of the sport, but not necessarily a fan of my team. That's fine. I told him, hey, we're going to go because I wanted to experience this for myself, but I also wanted to experience it with somebody else. I wanted to be able to see it through their eyes. I wanted them to see kind of the richness of this experience because it's not just one person experiencing it. It's a group of people that root for a team, that sort of live and die with a team. And so I took him. He had an incredible experience. It was great to see it through his eyes as well as for me to experience it myself. Now, just fast forward. You don't need to know all the details, but the team did really well. It's a long tournament. It's a long event. It goes on for many, many days or many, many games. And they did great at the beginning. They won the first 2 games. They were in the best position. And walking out of the stadium after the second game was euphoria. It was amazing. It was this feeling of kind of, walking 10 feet off the ground and feeling like we are unbeatable. We cannot be beaten. Greatest feeling in the world. And to watch the players and to watch their parents and to watch just everybody who supported this team be excited and feel like, wow, we finally did it was incredible. And unfortunately, that didn't mean after winning those first couple games that we won. It just meant we had made progress in this tournament. And unfortunately, we lost the next 2 games. So it's a tournament in which if you lose twice, you're out. We lost the first game. That was unfortunate, but we still had a second chance. This next game comes along, and it's deemed to be one of the greatest games ever played at this level of this sport. And unfortunately, the team lost in the most dramatic, terrible fashion possible. They lost in heartbreaking fashion. And so I was thinking about that. And unfortunately, as I'm thinking about Sunday Perspective, it's been the only thing that sort of consumed my mind for the last couple of weeks. Just, excited about my team. Finally, again, 68 years. And I got to thinking about it in the broader context of what we talk about on this show all the time. I've now been talking for 10 minutes. Most of you have probably dropped off because you're like, oh, blah, 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 sports, whatever. But I got to thinking about it in the broader context of, day-to-day work. And I did a show, gosh, it feels like it's been 6 months. It might have been a year ago, in which I talked about one of the things that is challenging for me, having played sports for a long time and now being in the corporate world, is that in the sports world, the season has a definitive start and has a definitive end. But at the end, everything that happened the season before goes away. I mean, not necessarily emotionally, but the scoreboard starts over. So if you happen to have a bad year, and you have a bad year because somebody got hurt, or maybe your schedule worked out such that you had to play all the best teams and somebody else didn't have to play all the best teams, or whatever reason, if you had a mediocre year, yes, it was difficult for that year, for that 9 months or 6 months or whatever. But the next year when it starts up again, everything starts fresh. And in the business world, yes, there is a calendar year and there is, January 1st and December 31st and quarters and stuff. But, if you are building a bad product, you don't just get to start over and say, oh, we're in 4th place in the market, but we just get to start over. It doesn't necessarily work that easily. And that's one of those things that's always been difficult for me to sort of, not have a scoreboard that restarted. There's a scoreboard that sort of goes on forever, but it's cumulative. Anyways, where am I going with all this? I think it's one of those things I sort of realized as I was sitting there kind of processing that not only had we lost, but the season was over and we had lost in such, horrible fashion was, there are times in our life, in our working life, in which, a lot of things are just going to feel mediocre. You're on a team, you're doing the work that you're doing, and you're maybe doing better than average work, but somebody else is better than you. Somebody else is winning in the market, or somebody else has built something better than you. Somebody else is getting more publicity than you. And there's times when you're like, oh man, this stinks. We're not winning. We're doing the best we can, but we're not winning. And maybe that goes on for a couple of years. And so you're in a period of time in which, you're sort of above average, but you don't feel like you're getting the recognition for what you did, because the way the market measures things, maybe it's in dollars, maybe it's in market share or a magic quadrant or whatever it is, you're not winning. And the world sort of knows that you're not winning. And you're sitting there and you're like, but it's fine. We're continuing to do what we do. I'm paying my bills. I enjoy the people I work with. It's fine. I'd love for us to be better. And that unfortunately, or fortunately, is going to be the majority of the time that you work. You're going to work in situations that are going to be fine, right? They're going to be okay. And then there's going to be periods of time in which it stinks, right? You don't like something for some period of time. Maybe you got a bad manager. Maybe the thing you're working on doesn't work. Maybe, I don't know, whatever happened. Maybe you had budget cuts and people got laid off, and that part stinks. And those are your bad seasons. But I was kind of thinking about this in the context of, hopefully, you get some good seasons, if you will. And the problem is you don't know when those good seasons are coming. I think back to my career, and, all deference to every manager I've ever had and every company I've ever had, not trying to be, kind of blah on them. But I look back on my career and I've probably had 3 or 4 periods of time, maybe 5, I don't know, I'd have to go back and think about them, in which I was like, this is the equivalent of not only a winning season, but a really great season, like maybe we're going to, go home with the trophy sort of season. And the hardest part of it is you don't really know that it's going on. And you don't know, in the sense of, like in a sporting event or a sporting season, you know when it starts and you know when it ends. And so like, what's the measurement of we're going to win? We're going to be deemed the champions of whatever the thing is you're doing. In work, you don't know, right? You may think like, oh gosh, that was a good quarter. That was a great year. Oh wow, we launched that product. That was amazing. Or we built this thing. It was incredible. But you don't know how long that's going to last. And that's the hard part. And I think what I'm kind of getting at around all this is, if I went back and looked at it again, if I went back and did it all over again, or even, as I go forward, I think you need to think about and have appreciation for when the things are going really well, because you have to sort of soak those in and you have to appreciate those, maybe more so than you do at the time, because you're probably working your butt off and you're like, wow, we're in the middle of this and this. But the people that you're with, those are going to be a unique set of people when you're doing well. But the other part is you want to bring people along with you during that process. And I mentioned, bringing my nephew along with me. You don't want to sort of exclude yourself from that, right? The excitement you feel, the euphoria you feel, the emotions you feel when things are going well, it's important to bring people into that. And I bring that in. I might mean, bringing your spouse in and letting them know, look, these are the people I work with. These are great people. These are really interesting people. It could be bringing your family in. It might be, letting your friends and relatives know what you're doing. Because I feel like it's really easy to have some good period of time. And again, you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know why it's necessarily going to happen. And then it can change on you in a minute. It can change on you in a moment's notice. And sometimes it feels like something's going well and maybe something's not going well. And let me give you an example. And again, this isn't a knock on anything. And people listening to this may hear this and go, no, that's not really true. But for example, if you were working at Amazon, if you were working at Amazon Web Services, for example, from, let's say, 2012-ish, 13, 14, to about 2020, you probably felt like you were on top of the world. You probably felt like everything we touch is gold. Everything that we build, the world thinks is fantastic. Every time the Gartner Magic Quadrant comes out, we are winning. Now, we're not just winning. We are so far up and to the right that it's almost like we're on our own planet. And during that time, the world was like, you have got it figured out. You are the future. You are unbelievable. And, for one, there wasn't necessarily a scoreboard. There kind of was. There were scoreboards that you could look at and, but you probably also thought like, that's going to last forever. We are going to be the belle of the ball forever. And you look at AWS now and you go, they're still kicking butt. They're still winning in the sort of cloud wars. But in terms of like, are they the belle of the ball? No, not necessarily, right? The world has sort of said, hey, that period of time in which we're going to rain, lavish praise on you, it's kind of over. We've kind of seen what you've done, right? And that's sort of equivalent to like, oh, you had a bunch of great players for a period of time, and now some of them are gone. They got traded, they retired, they moved on to something else. And I'm not sort of saying, hey, the run of AWS is over, but I'm sure the people that were there look back on it incredibly fondly, but maybe didn't necessarily know what was going on at that time. Didn't necessarily realize how good they had it at that time. Another example, I was reading this morning an article. We did a show, kind of a mid-year show that'll come out here in a couple of weeks, and we were talking about, which one of the cloud providers is really doing well right now, which one's doing great. And Brandon Witchert and I, who was co-hosting with me, we both said, we think Microsoft right now is kicking butt. They're A+ in what they're doing. And then I read an article this morning that talks about all the challenges that the AWS, the Azure cloud team is having, and how their morale is low, and how people are frustrated because, they're having to cut back budgets, and they're struggling with stuff. And I kind of went, yeah, this is when, you get into these weird situations in which maybe the external world thinks you're winning and you're in the middle of it and you're like, God, we're miserable. And maybe those are just headlines and maybe they're just gossip and maybe nobody over there is miserable. And again, I'm just kind of trying to connect some dots here. But, I think the thing to remember is when you're in the middle of it, sometimes if it's going well, because again, a lot of your day-to-day job stuff will be monotonous. It'll be slightly better than average, but maybe not feeling like you're winning a championship at any given time. It may not feel like you have the best team at any given time. But during those moments when you are winning, when you're winning, maybe just winning for your expectations wise, right? Maybe in your mind, you're like, we have accomplished something so incredible that I don't know if we'll ever accomplish something like this again. Or I'm getting a chance to work with people that are so amazing. And maybe 5 years from now, you look back and you go, wow, that person's doing that amazing thing. That person's doing that amazing thing. That person's doing that amazing thing. Sometimes when those things are happening, when you get those few moments in your career, and maybe you're going to get one, and maybe you're going to get five, and maybe you're going to get two, who knows? Maybe you're not going to get any. Hopefully you get some. I think it's important to sort of step back and appreciate it in the moment, if it's possible. And I know it's really hard. And I come back to my baseball analogy. Boy, I tell you what, a week ago, I was on top of the world. I thought, no, nothing can get better than this. Nothing can beat this feeling. We have got it. We have figured it all out. And then the way we lost and the way it ended was so abrupt and so jarring that, just comparing and contrasting those two things was like, wow, I'm going to try and put this bad thing behind me. I'm going to try not to think about it. I'm going to try and put myself back in that state of mind I was in a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and try and hold on to that feeling for a long time. And I think, in the tech world, as fast as tech moves, as fast as, decisions get made, sometimes they feel like good decisions and sometimes they feel like terrible decisions, that were just made by some CFO who looked at a line item that said, nope, we're no longer keeping this thing around. And you're like, but that's my thing. That was going to do well. That was really important. I think it's important to sort of bottle up those good times, those times when you feel like you're winning, whatever winning means for you, and remember them and cherish them while they're going on, because, hopefully it's not 68 years before your next winning experience happens. I hope in my case, it's not again. Hopefully it's next year or 2 years from now, whenever it is. But I think there's a lot of parallels between sort of the passion we have around our favorite team, our favorite hobby, our favorite, sporting event, for example, or other hobby we have, and the thing that we aspire to with it, and maybe the fleetingness of the success that comes with it. Maybe you're lucky enough to always be on the winning team, but even, the winning teams are the ones that perceive to be winning. Maybe not everybody who's on that team feels like they're winning. So, my only advice out of this, again, as I was trying to process the emotions of, this thing that I'm passionate about that finally got to the top of the mountain, and then sort of thought about it in the context of work and the parallels between them. It's the great times may not come that often. Just savor the heck out of them when they do come along. They may come to an end abruptly, and that part stinks. But if you can kind of forget about that ending, that bad part, kind of tuck away in your mind the good times with it. If you can bring some people along with you and help them let them experience it with you, that's powerful too, because they're going to help extend those good vibes and those good feelings and so forth. So anyways, a little bit of this was cathartic of me kind of getting kind of the ups and downs of the last month or so of me and my fandom out. I think I needed to talk about them. But I do feel like as I was thinking about it, there are a lot of parallels to what goes on in your career. And you might be early in your career, you might be late in your career. I suspect, if you haven't hit that great period yet, keep trying, keep sticking with trying to be really good at something so that you can be part of one of those really amazing teams. If you've been part of one before, I suspect you are, scratching and clawing to be like, boy, if I'm not in that situation right now, I would love to be back on one of those great teams again. So with that, hopefully some of this, struck a chord with some of you. Some of you can relate to it. We are now moving into summer. The summer doldrums are coming along. We will put out some shows that hopefully are both informative for you, but also as you're going on vacations, as you're going on road trips, as maybe you're out with the in-laws or whatever it might be, your spouse's family or whatever, and you need some time. We're gonna put together some shows for you as well that hopefully will entertain and make things interesting for you. So thank you again for listening. Thanks as everybody to being part of the Cloudcast community. Thanks for helping us grow the show. Thanks for sending us feedback. We've gotten a whole bunch of really interesting feedback lately and some really directive feedback and super helpful, useful feedback. So thank you to everybody for that. But with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.